Hello, my name is Omar Rampersad. It's 6:22 p.m., September 14th, 2020. I posted a bunch of tweets today and recently on the weekend. And I talked about some similarities between accumulation of files in this building about me, fake files, and the Russell Williams case. And his documentation, his meticulous documentation of what he was doing, of his rapes, of his violations, of his murder, torture, murder, kidnapping, murder, everything caught on tape. So the only reason somebody would do that is if they're sharing it, and not only sharing it, selling it, because his pictures were very well documented, time, date, place, file number. So these files were being accessed not only by him, but by other people as well. There was a ring, or else it would not make any sense to document it so his crime so meticulously if he wasn't selling. It made absolutely no sense. I mean, why would you accumulate evidence that is guaranteed to send you away for life? And it's a pity that Canada doesn't have the death sentence, but maybe being alive is worse than dying sometimes. Anyway, so it made absolutely no sense for a criminal to document so meticulously his crimes that is guaranteed to send him away for life. It's interesting that, just a little side note here, it's interesting that Canadian law, he was sentenced to concurrent terms, life terms, and eligible for parole in 25 years, and that's the law. But it's funny that in cases like his case, Russell Williams' case, in which what he did was so horrific and beyond a human being's imagination. He's not a human being, which is what I'm saying. Couldn't possibly be a human being. He was taken over by something, or some satanic groups. Because the only word to describe what he was doing was diabolically evil and satanic doesn't even do justice to what he did. He's not human. So anyway, to get back to point, the law, the Canadian law gives him the right for parole in 25 years. It surprises me that the judge did not take away that right. Now, I'm not sure what the law allows him to do, allows the judge to do or not. But it would seem to me that this was a very, very, very unusual case. And his right to parole should not apply in this case. I mean, the very process of the 25 years being up and him going through the process of trying to get parole, just thought of it. Could you imagine what it would do to his many, 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 many victims? Not only the women he violated, but the families as well. And all other women, actually. Him being around puts every woman in danger. So he should not have been given, seeing that we don't have the death penalty in Canada, he should not have been given the chance at parole, period. But having said that, there is a similarity between the file accumulation between his case and what is being done in the building. And I tweet about what's being done in the building. And it also involves the Toronto police. The accumulation of a file is taken to form of my being falsely flagged and outsourced monitoring by the Toronto Police. And this has not been disclosed to me. I am coming to these conclusions based on the harassment that I've been experiencing for the last 15 years at least in this building. So the accumulation of the file takes this form, where the outsourced monitoring creates files, because the person who is taking the contract to monitor, quote unquote, creates a file about me. And then everywhere I am, a different person will take on that responsibility and that contract to create the file, to make reports about me. So then there is an accumulation of accumulation of information in a file about me that is transferred to people who take on the contract anywhere I am. So since the flagging started in this building, the person in this building started that file. And then that file started accumulating and being passed around. And there's a lot of sexual content in that file, because as long as you're a target, you have no privacy and you're being surveilled inside of your home. I've been talking about directed energy weapons. So because it's outsourced monitoring, microwave signals are being used to track. Turn up the power, you get torture. Use other remote technologies, you get rape. And this is exactly what's happening in this building. Now, the cops who are involved are trafficking. They're dirty cops, just like the cops who are involved with Russell Williams' case, or some of the cops, I should say. The ring, the pedophile ring, because Russell Williams had child porn on his computer, so he was a pedophile, and obviously taking pictures of 11-year-olds also makes him a pedophile. So there's a pedophile ring that is in the military. Now, who was he passing these kids around to? Following the same template as the one that's being formulated and followed in the building. I mean, passed around. The person who has the contract passes me around. So there are many levels of passing around. The person who has the contract subcontracts, so he or she logs in. Then he passes me around to a group of people who also log in. And those people pass me around to another level of people. So you can have hundreds of people logging in and tens of people logging in at the same time. So if microwaves are being used in my case, then Russell Williams were logging into some of these young girls. Is it possible? Very possible. I worked in a call center, and the person who had the contract in the company said around me, not directly to me, let's send her back to the military. Give her back to the military. She belonged to the military. So there are dirty military experiments being carried out all the time. It's been done in the past, and it's being done presently, and it will be done in the future, I'm sure. Russell Williams, an experiment? Well, maybe part of it was an experiment, but I think mostly it was about trafficking, just like what's going on in this building. And since it's so widespread, it's global. There are millions and millions and millions of children, especially in third world countries, millions of children who are being pipelined into these rings to be accessed. Keep in mind, this is satanic, so Satan wants everybody. So that the more people who are pipelined into the rings, then the better. And of course, more money for the contractors who are being outsourced too. Since the cops are, in my opinion, taking the contracts from the military and are giving contracts to people who they outsource to. So this is, it's like I said, it's so diabolically evil what's being done, especially to children. There are no words. The English language, in my opinion, do not have um, the right words to describe a man like Russell Williams and what he does, and the people who allowed him to do it for so long and who fed off it. So anyway, so I'm going to show you some signals that that I'm experiencing right now. I'm being bombarded with right now. So here, I just got a scan, and I'm going to take my blood pressure. And that cough is because my throat is being hit. It's interesting that the contractors outside my window keeps mentioning names of my family. They also talk about my family members getting heart attacks, accidents. They call their names and then they mention the heart attacks, accidents in the same sentence. So this is meant to scare me into showing, quote unquote. In other words, make yourself accessible so these signals can access you at night between your legs, and they can perform whatever they perform remotely. So I'm just going to try to explain from my experience and from the comments outside the window what it is they try to do remotely. And I did this before, but I'm going to go through it again. Because it is a military contract, the military have all kinds of technologies, and they do all kinds of experiments with soldiers, wartime, war zone experiments, which is chipping, brain-to-brain communication, remote neural monitoring, the use of holograms, the use of haptic technology, the use of ultrasonic technology, teledining, sound technology, and all kinds of cutting edge, secret technology that we don't know about, basically. Scalar waves and so on. Scalar waves are known, but I haven't done the research in much detail, so I don't know much about scalar waves. But I read that some of the targets are being hit with scalar waves. Now, the neurological effects of these technologies, or I should say some of the effects, is to create levels of consciousness. And just like you have levels of consciousness when you're falling into sleep and when you're waking up, these technologies can create levels of consciousness. And in these levels of consciousness, programming is done. So while you're wide awake, you will not be triggered into acting out some of the things that's programmed on these levels, which are frequency levels, really. But when you drop into these frequency levels, then you can be triggered to act out. So when you fall asleep, you naturally go into some of these levels, consciousness levels. But these consciousness levels can be created artificially as well. Your brainwave frequencies can be artificially altered. So rather than it dropping naturally as when you fall asleep, you aim a neurological weapon at your head, and it will drop your frequency to the level that is needed to do the programming into. So when the person is triggered on that level, then the person acts out. And I'm talking about this from a sexual point of view. It's a sexual programming that is, in my case, that is aimed for. So dream manipulation can easily be done. Pulses of light images into your head that is synchronized with stimulations of the body, and not only between your legs, your breast, and not only your breast, other areas of your body. All kinds of training could be done, which is not really training, it's really torture. Your body is being monitored as you sleep. And I heard the worker did this for years. Your body is monitored because your body is accessed. And if the worker wants, if the contractor who's logged in wants you to wake up to go to the bathroom, then your bladder will be hit. If he wants to make you do a number two, your bowels will be hit. If he wants you to hiccup, your esophagus will be hit. If he wants you to sneeze, your nose will be hit. But this is what they call training. Really, it is really customizing to a certain client at a certain schedule. It's schedule customizing to a client. This is not really training. So these technologies could be used to create levels of consciousness that allows programming that could be triggered anywhere, anytime, any place. And it doesn't need for you to be asleep or going to or falling asleep or waking up. It could be artificially done. So you could be sitting in a doctor's office. Somebody comes in with a briefcase and have this technology in the briefcase with a computer, aims it at your head, drop your consciousness level, stimulate your genitals, stimulate your breast, and act and perform certain activities, hand motions, conversations to draw attention to the person. And if you're not aware of what's going on, like a child, an 11-year-old girl, for instance, or boy, the stimulation is intended, the sexual stimulation is intended to make you act out towards the person. So the person is the client that you're being customized to, or he's customizing you on behalf of a client, because there are agents who come around you on behalf of the main person, the manager. So the manager could be in India, and the person around your unit could be an Indian man doing this to you in your home, in your bed, while you're sleeping, in the bathroom, watches you in the bathroom, in the bed, on the toilet. So you have no privacy. Now, we are in a new world order right now. Whether we like it or not, this is where we're headed. COVID-19 set the stage for the new world order to be ushered in. Well, we all agree, people who believe in a God and who are spiritual and who goes to church and who have a foundation, who's grounded in the knowledge of our being a part of a bigger, greater creative force that is intended to allow us to grow and expand and to blossom into something that is beautiful and productive and positive. If you believe that, then you would know that we are headed into hell. we are headed into hell. And people like Russell Williams being at the top of the military is a very, very, very good sign that this is happening. Satan is at the top right now. Satan will not be at the top forever. But how long he's there depends on the people who will fight this agenda, the satanic agenda that's being brought in. So I suspect that there was always a lot of satanic influence in our society for a very long time, but it's never been this open, and it's never been this widespread, and it's never been so quote unquote accepted. I say quote unquote accepted because it's not really accepted. We are being programmed covertly to quote unquote accept it. Really, we are not accepting it. We are being mind controlled into getting used to it. We are not really making the decision on our own. We are not doing it out of our own will, because our human nature will not choose naturally, will not choose negative things. I mean, out of the human population, a very, 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 very small percentage are really criminal and are really bad people. Very few will actually kill. But we are getting so much violence and so much murders and so much negativity in our society right now because we are being programmed into that state of mind, covertly and now overtly. We're not naturally this way. We are not naturally this way. We don't naturally gravitate towards negative things. We naturally gravitate towards positive things. So, so my point, what was my point? My point is, what I'm talking about is global. It is, it used to be covert, now it's overt. It is not only women that are being targeted, everyone are being targeted. COVID-19 affects everyone. And you would notice how governments are just coming down so hard on people who don't wear masks. They're actually killing people who are not wearing masks. Now you think about that. You think about that. Somebody is electing not to wear a mask and a cop comes along and kills the person. How does what the cop do measure up to what the person did? How is it justifiable to kill a person for not wearing a mask? This is a mind control. Under normal circumstances, a cop wouldn't do that. But what is driving the cop's psyche? What is making the cop do that? Probably an infiltrated cop. Probably a mind control cop. A paid off cop. So, he wants to make an example of somebody. And so, we are headed into this world where our rights are being taken away, and we are being forced to accept something that is hell. That's slavery, sexual, mental, physical slavery. I mean, as something like let me just take this example. Talk about this example. Healthcare. You have TAM coming out and saying, well, we're going to have lockdowns because the government system that we are covered under OHIP is going to be overwhelmed with the second wave if we don't keep our distance and wear masks and so on. And by the way, doctors are coming out saying that masks are not good for your mouth. It's creating bacteria, infections of the mouth and the nose, and bad gum disease and so on. So masks are not really good. Long-term wear is not really good. But anyways, so she comes along and she says, well, if you don't do all these things, then we're going to have to take these measures, and these lockdowns is going to come into play again, says Doug Ford. And they're hinting at it on a federal level as well. But at the same time, they're not allowing doctors to have private practices and clinics. That is not government run. And at the same time, they're shutting down the naturopaths, the people who have natural cures, all the natural healers getting beaten up and killed off, and harassed out of business. And with COVID-19 now, of course, the businesses are going to close, at least the physical stores. There's always the online option. But I imagine eventually some of those are also going to be closed off to the public. So we are being forced to use the government system when there are millions of doctors out there who would love to open up your own private clinic, and those who could afford it to pay them. That will take off the burden, or some of the burden, off the public healthcare system. Would it create two levels of care? Well, maybe, but even so, at least it will be a safety valve. It will be a release of some of the pressure being put on the government care system. So why not allow that to happen? And I heard that this on the radio. The courts, one of the I think he took it to one of the higher courts. I'm not sure if it was Supreme Court, but a doctor, and the court denied his right to open up a private clinic. And he's going to appeal it. Well, the doctor argued, well, here's COVID-19, and you're saying that the system is overwhelmed. So this is exactly as I said, it will take some of the pressure off the system. So he's going to appeal it. So the argument, I think, was exactly that. As I said, it will create a two-tiered system, and it will not be equal health care for everyone. Well, and so be it. But it will save the healthcare system some of the costs, because the people who are paying for their own is not going to be using up the cost that's put in, wouldn't be using up the dollars that's being put into the public care system, right? So, we are being forced, my point, we are being forced to use the government as the only source of healthcare, and everything else from now on, it would seem. The governments are telling us we can't party, we can't have, there's no sex, don't kiss. Grandma and grandpa can't babysit your kids anymore. For a virus that kills, maybe kills about 5% of the people it's infected. And out of the 5%, 2 to 3% of that, from what I read, are really old, compromised, vulnerable people who are not being taken care of. So they're not representative of the general population. Again, just like the policeman killing or beating up the man and putting him in a hospital in a coma for not wearing a mask. The degree of reaction of anger and the reaction of the policeman does not fit the crime. So there was something wrong. Again, for those of us who have a spiritual grounding, you get a sense deep down in your very soul that something is wrong with what's going on right now. Something is gravely, seriously wrong with what we see going on in our society and in the world right now. And for those of you who really think that way and feel deeply about it, start drawing your lines and start deciding where it is that you're going to stop where it is that you're going to, and I'm trying to choose my words carefully here, where is your personal line of dignity, self-dignity, and of personal dignity and self-esteem and self-respect? Where is that line? If somebody tells you, to jump over a cliff, will you? Because that person is telling you to do it for the good of others, and he's from the government. Will you jump over the cliff? Will you send your children over the cliff for the good of the community? Will you sell your children for sex to rich men as sexual slave for the good of the community? Because everybody should be common to one another, because this is where we're going. Men and women are going to be common to each other. This is where we're going. With 5G and everything is connected, you are going to be connected to everything and everybody else, and to every object and every person around you. This is what contact tracing is starting to do. You'll be connected to everything and everybody around you all the time, which is going to be connected. That system is going to be connected to something bigger, and a bigger network. That network is going to be bigger, and it's going to be all connected via satellite to one huge network of supercomputers that somebody is going to be looking at 24/7. And you can do your own research on this. Go on to TED Talks. You hear people talking about this. The Big Brother state, surveillance state. This is where it's headed. We are being forced into it. And what's going on here at 25 Bamburgh Circle with only one person, me, and I'm talking about it, and there is a sexual side to this whole thing, but it goes beyond that. Programming somebody for sex is just one of the many, 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 many ways that you can be programmed, that you're going to be forced into. Sexual enslavement is just one of the type of enslavement. You have mental enslavement, you have psychological enslavement, you have the building of the pyramid, where you have different levels of slaves. You're going to be forced into certain levels. So your life is not about blossoming and fulfilling your potential. It's about being forced into certain levels of this pyramid as certain types of slaves. So you'll have the worker bees. We're all going to be worker bees, but we're going to have different levels of work. You know, the white collar work, the blue collar work, and within that you'll have some categories. Well, that is similar to the caste system in India. It's exactly the same thing. And the caste system is a system of enslavement. That's exactly what it is. And this is why you see the Indians who are taking part in this targeting, the Indians, the Muslims who believe in slaves, African countries who believe in slaves, and these are all misogynistic cultures. They all are taking part in it, and are taking turns to rape remotely, customize. So in my case, for instance, today, here are some names that I heard. of people who are accessing me, who has been accessing me, or who will be accessing me. Razor, Muslim. Badr Nizar, Muslim. Masood, Muslim. I don't know who Masood is. I know who Reza, I know who Badr Nizar is. I have no idea who Masood is. I heard Muhammad, Sirmad, Khalid. These are Muslim names. There are also some Indian names in some of the companies that I worked for that I heard. So, what's going on in this building is just a microcosm of what's going on globally. It's a process of forcing somebody into enslavement. It's not only sexual enslavement, it's labor enslavement. Because when I get placed in a company, there's a contract on my head. Because as one manager said to me, over to somebody next to me, she belongs to the military, let's give it back, threatening me. When I'm placed in a workplace, there's a collection of information in the workplace by the cops in my case. But under COVID-19, your employers will be collecting that information on behalf of the government. Exact template, exactly the same template that's being used. So lots to think about. We live in very, very serious times. For people who are not being swept up in this COVID-19 tsunami, and they're going to be washed away, symbolically speaking. For those of you who are not swept up, we should decide where you're going to draw your line and start voicing your opinion and doing something about it. In other words, start protecting your dignity and your self-respect and your freedom, your mental freedom, your emotional freedom, your physical freedom, your financial freedom, psychological freedom, spiritual freedom, religious freedom, because they're all being taken away. Under COVID-19, there are so many things that they're talking about taking away. Right now, it's quote unquote temporary. Our governments have been infiltrated. It's time to change the governments. It's time to let our governments know, and I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about letting our governments know that we are not happy with what's going on. And these policies should be changed. This is our right under our democratic system. This is our right. We have a right to do this. Talk to you another time.